Today I'm going to show you how to sew on labels. It's pretty simple, but there's a few tips and tricks that I want to make sure that you know. It is going to be best when you finish a sweater to go ahead and wash it, get it blocked, and then sew on the labels. This is because your stitch gauge may change after blocking, and if you sew on the label first, then you'll have a pucker that shows on the back of that, and that's not what you want. So I am working with some leftover yarn that I have, so that will match and it'll blend in. And what we're going to do is just tie a little tiny knot on the end of that. And then this particular tag has a little fold over on the back of it. So I'm going to bury the knot into the bottom corner of that. And this is mohair, so it's a little sticky, which is also kind of nice for weaving in ends and things like that, is that it pretty much stays put. Then the next thing I'm going to do is identify the center of the sweater. And you can fold this in half, and you can see this rib right here is the center of that. And placement is totally up to you. I folded this collar over and tacked it into place. So I'm going to actually use this to help cover up some of that. Just center the tag. And then I'm just going to tack the corners. And I'm choosing to tack the corners because that is going to allow the sweater to have a little bit of movement underneath the tag. If you wanted to, you could go through and, sew the tag around all ends, and that would be just fine. And then if you have a longer tag here, you might weave in your yarn, and if you're working with a yarn that has a really, really defined twist to it, you'll be able to see it. So I would just weave that in kind of along the bottom of that. This mohair is pretty fuzzy, so it's going to be really forgiving. And it's sticky. So once you put it in place, it pretty much stays. If you're curious to know about these labels, I got these labels from Kylie and the Machine. They are, I think she caters kind of to sewing enthusiasts, but a label's a label. Okay, so now I am going to choose to just bring my thread to the other side, and I'm just going to do that by kind of weaving my way over. Again, I'm not being really fussy with this because it is mohair, and the mohair really just gets buried. This sweater is made with 4 strands of mohair held together. If you're curious to know about the sweater pattern, it is by Petite Knits, and it's called the Saturday Night Sweater. I find that anywhere between like 2 to 4 tacks is going to be sufficient to hold this in place. It'll depend on the thickness of your yarn. I'm just grabbing the purl bump. Just go into that. And then from here, I'm just going to weave in my end. And I like to weave in ends by just tracing the stitch. It's basically a duplicate stitch. So I'm going to find basically a row and trace it over. So I'm going over and up and over and down, over and up, over and down. And I'm just going to continue doing that until I have enough of the end woven in, until I feel like it's not going anywhere. This is part of my original end that was weaved in. I'm just gonna see if I can maybe get that to hide. But really, it's the inside of the sweater. Nobody's really going to be looking at the inside of your sweater. Let's snip that off. And that is how you sew in a tag.